Learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv.
Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Jen Gordon. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. To get started, what is your definition of optimization, and why is it beneficial?
Sure. So we talked earlier about, having tangible, really concrete ideas to share here today. But for this one, I just want to preface it's a little abstract, but my definition when I'm thinking about how I approach landing page design and how I approach customer research and dealing with my customers or trying to sell online, what I'm looking for in the optimization process is how to create a connection, a relationship, and how to continue building that relationship. Almost to the point, I would even maybe use the word intimacy between buyers and sellers. And then I thought, well, there's very transactional sort of situations online where you're on an Amazon, right? And even in the transactional sort of sales, if you have a landing page that's just a transaction, and you're not really having to build a lot of relationships with the buyer, I have over time built a relationship with Amazon that, I know that I'm going to have a very quick checkout. It's going to be convenient. They have proven themselves to have great prices and they are saving me money with Prime. Like that relationship is there, even though I know there's not a human on the other side going, thanks, Jen. I appreciate your I get the sense that somebody cares and somebody cares about that experience they gave me. So to me, optimization is about how to further a relationship and how to continue to create more and more connection between buyers and sellers.
Yeah, it's interesting how the web has really changed to that kind of like that one-to-one relationship. The most important scenario that you have to deal with is the one you're in right now.
Right.
That's what it kind of comes down to. Whatever device you're on, whatever website, whatever experience you have, whatever problem you have in your life, what you're dealing with in that query, in that Google search result, or that landing page, that's the problem that you need to deal with right now. And I know me as a designer, people come to me, oh, I want this landing page over here that looks like this, or I want this page this checkout process that does that. And too many people are just making assumptions that that's really the answer for them.
Right.
And today I want to talk about specifically trying to figure out why those landing pages actually don't convert. Understanding those aspects of what's actually missing. What's the language that's maybe missing? Maybe it's the design. How do you kind of figure out why those landing pages don't convert?
Sure. So a lot of it revolves around research. And this is where it does get very tangible and sort of, easy to explain a process. So myself and my writing partner in particular is really good at this. We research everything from, like, if you can imagine doing a landing page for some sort of golfing related product. If you think about all of the industry magazines out there that have been testing headlines for years, like probably 20, 30 years, they have tons of money they pour into those magazines. They have tons of money that they pour into testing headlines and seeing, who buys this magazine versus that magazine. I mean, looking in places like that where you wouldn't normally think of looking for ideas on how to find out what sort of messaging is resonating with a particular audience. Amazon reviews. I mean, some of these are pretty common tactics, Amazon reviews, forums, blog comments, surveys. I kind of cringe at the survey one because, I'm sure you've had this experience where you ask questions and people, even if it's an anonymous survey, you don't always people aren't really going to tell you what they're really needing because most of the time people don't know. And so it's not even that they're trying to, be inauthentic. I think it's that most of us really don't know what we need in a moment or can't articulate it. I think that's probably the biggest challenge with the research is that we can't really catch people in the wild very well. I mean, we can with heat maps or whatever, but even if you are doing eye tracking, videotaped eye tracking on a site, you're still not able to hear the inner dialogue that people aren't saying. So there's a limit to it, I think, but I find that the more research we can get from the widest array of sources, it informs what we're going to test, or it informs our hypotheses. And then from there, we can put the tests out there and see how they react.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down, as you said, bringing it into your hypothesis, because all we're doing is really trying to come up with an educated guess. Everyone tries to create this ultimate hypothesis that's going to be the killer conversion improvement for your site. And, that might be the case if you have an unoptimized site or you're just getting started doing this. You're going to find those quick wins. But if you've been doing this for a little while, it's going to be harder for your pages to convert over time. So you're going to have to go deeper. You're going to have to build that foundation. And I think that's where my mindset has really shifted in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. The more research that you do, whether it's Amazon reviews, testimonials, surveys, user testing, you want to use that as a foundation and keep on adding to that. As Brian Eisenberg, basically taught me, persona modeling. You're always concerned about how to make the user do what they want them to do. And we need to figure out what that is. What do they want to do? And what's missing from the language or the call to action if they're not taking the action we want them to take.
Yep.
So I've really focused on the discovery and the qualitative aspect of what's going on in their mind. So we watch people go through user testing, making sure we bring in the right ideal clients to the right pages. Mm-hmm. Because protesters can be a little bit biased, so you want to avoid bringing in those protesters. But then if you start to listen to them, at least you're getting ideas of that voice of the customer, the language that they're using, and you'll eventually start to see patterns. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like you're getting into that customer mindset. You're kind of becoming who they are, so you can know more about what they're going to do than they kind of know themselves. And and from that, you can kind of build out your ideal experience, your ideal click map, as I call it. Actually, it's marketing along a specific path. So you want them to do these certain things. And just like you mentioned with the editorial or the magazines, they test all those different headlines with all those different scenarios within their book. Once they know a scenario that really works, they go all in and they just keep on pushing it to the limits until it stops working. And it's the exact same thing with their hypothesis. Your hypothesis is going to eventually change. You find those easy, quick wins at first, but then you continuously optimize. You continuously understand the customer better, so you can tell your story, understand that you're empathizing with that customer and trying to make their lives a lot better.
Mm-hmm. And I think you hit on a big piece of it is when people feel that they're being empathized with, it connects and it helps you market along the journey, like you're saying, and it helps you to know what is the next thing they may need, and you get a little ahead of the curve. Rather than being in reactive mode, and just responding. I have one example I think I can share anonymously, a client that had a similar, or is kind of on this journey that we're describing, because it's frustrating whenever a hypothesis or whenever something stops working. That just sucks. So, but it happens, and I have a client that has had great success selling her courses in the past, and just things have stopped working, and things that used to work don't work anymore. And it's gotten to the point where we've tested lots of different hypotheses, And what our next hypotheses that we're testing is that, and I think part of the challenge that we're dealing with is when she first started, there wasn't a lot of competition in her space. There is now a lot of competition from a lot of people with great personalities, very warm, inviting people who have struggled in this industry, and the people that they are marketing to are also, they're struggling. They are having, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-esteem issues in particular, about being able to get their business off the ground. And it's difficult for my customer to relate to that because that wasn't her story. And so it's been interesting to try to, went mining for all this information first and hearing the voice of the customer, that they're scared. They don't think they have what it takes to make it work. And knowing that needs to be my customer's voice also, but it's kind of tough for her to get there. But that's why things have come to a halt, sort of, is because they're wanting that from her, but it's not what she presents. So that is where, like you're saying, you have to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's where it gets all intangible and there's no real playbook when you get to this point. So except for whenever you do some research and start testing, and then things start to come to life in terms of like tangible information that you can, make decisions on or make decisions by.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, as you mentioned, you eventually you're going to reach that local maximum, and you're not going to find things that are easy to improve anymore, especially with landing pages. And I think that's a key point. We actually talked about this before the call. I've been doing this now for 15 years. I've built a lot of landing pages, and it used to be very easy to get them to convert. Yeah. But as, more competition has been exposed, it's easier to get your landing pages up, and so it's going to be a lot more difficult to get people to convert at a lower rate than as it used to be, and have a positive ROI. Mm-hmm. So trying these different things with landing pages, you have to experiment in different ways. Like you're almost segmenting down to, as we mentioned earlier, to a one-by-one person. I'm talking to this one person off of an email list, and then I'm talking to this one ad off of Google AdWords, and then I'm talking to this one conversation off of social media. So now we have all these different segments, and I think a lot of the clients, they always miss that. Oh, I want one landing page basically for everything, every single type of segment that comes in, and it just kind of doesn't work like that anymore.
No, and I even I read a recent article about optimizing landing pages. What we're talking about here is optimizing per traffic source, which even includes an email. So, if you send somebody an email with a particular message and they click on a link, you're not going to send them to just, a blog post or something. You're going to send them to a landing page that's specific to the message in the email. And it's it's a lot of work, but I think getting micro focused, like just as concise of a message as you can present and have it be completely, it's like the scent they talk about, it just being strong all the way through all the messaging.
Yeah, the ability to have that scent follow you around, so that you're going towards the right end goal, leading up to the ultimate conversion. Yeah. So thinking about, now we kind of have the mindset of the customer. We've dug in deep and got some qualitative feedback, so we now know some language patterns, some ideas to test. What would be some top tips to design landing pages? I mean, you've designed a number of different themes now for unbounds and lead pages and just regular HTML landing pages. Have you seen kind of like a best practices of some of the top things to designing your landing pages?
Mm-hmm. In terms of design, I always go back to actually not design practices per se. To me, the design piece, and I'm sure you feel this way too, it's based on so many factors in terms of the messaging and the imagery and the layout and how all those things sort of play together. I guess what I don't subscribe to any one particular method or layout, or like, to me it's really based on that individual offer, that individual product. I mean, I do themes and templates, and I use a lot of best practices in those themes and templates. Well, I'll share a few that I always use in my templates that I feel like are not as vague. So one thing that I think works well, and I've done a lot of testing with clients on this as well, not just themes and templates, but with clients, is having a call to action in a sticky header. That's and on and having, possibly, if it's a long sales page, having some anchor navigation links at the top. That's one thing that I've seen that works consistently. Whenever we measure the clicks on the sticky header versus clicks within the page, the sticky header beats out the other clicks consistently. That's one thing I can say is a tip that that I can hang my hat on and say, feel confident with that. Let me think. There's so many best practices out there, but the more I test, the more that some of those are debunked. So I'll put these out here. I'll put them out as just things like food for thought. So directional cues, that's a very common conversion-centered design principle, is using directional cues. I agree, directional cues really work. Where I see there being issues is probably one of the biggest issues I see on landing pages, you probably see this too, is visual hierarchy just explosion, and you can use directional cues and all that, but if the visual hierarchy of the page, if the eye is bouncing all over the place and trying to figure out where to land, it sabotages other efforts to try to draw people into your call to action or reading your headline or whatever it is. So I can't, someone else referred to this as, he actually had a name for it. I wish I could remember what it is, but basically a technique to try to identify if your page has visual hierarchy issues is to, just pull up like a blank browser screen or whatever. Or you can close your eyes. Like my technique was just to close my eyes, or I would just leave, the computer for an hour, or maybe even let it go for a couple of days, and come back to it. And just try to be aware of where your eyes are falling on the page when you see the page and you haven't seen it in a while. And that will help you identify. You may not be able to identify exactly the pattern that your eye falls, that your eye takes, but if it's not obvious that your eye is falling, bam, right on that headline or right on that whatever it is you want it to fall on, that's a clue that you need to take a look at the hierarchy and try to deal with that.
Yeah, it's similar to, Steve Krug's famous book, Don't Make Me Think.
Yeah.
Those visual cues, especially landing pages, coming off of pay-per-click advertising, people are just impatient. They don't have the attention span. So, within a second, you need to kind of tell that story above the fold. And with visual cues, information architecture, and that visual hierarchy to lead people down the page is really just so important, because you don't want people to think. Because as Angie Schottmuller speaks about, is those buyer modalities. All these different people have these different ways of digesting your information. Some people like to read, some people skim, some people watch video, some people just don't even, like me, I just, okay, click, let me see what's next. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to cater to all of those different modalities and their challenges. Fast-paced, competitive, humanistic. Some people want reviews, and getting into that mindset, it can be very difficult. But starting with some of those best practices is ideal. Call to action above the fold, clear headline, clear bullets, social proof, those key principles of persuasion, as we all talked about, But I find it really interesting, as we move to this segmented world of, email, social media, and pay-per-click advertising. It's like you really just need to understand what that purpose is for that individual at that individual moment. Because with landing pages, there's so many variety that you could offer these days. There's not one best practice that works for you. But what I've definitely noticed in the segmentation aspect is that people coming off of Facebook, very different audience than people coming off of Google AdWords.
Yes.
And you want to treat those differently. What I've seen for the most part is lead magnets. Asking for an email address right away may work great for Facebook. That might not work very well for pay-per-click advertising.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, then that depends on, how much research, where are they in their buyer journey or their research phase, how far along are they, and how many people in that group, depending on the wording of the AdWords ad, you may be segmenting out a group of people that are, really far along in their research process. One customer of mine that does a lot of Google AdWords advertising, we didn't realize, and I can't give all the details about the specific wording in their ads and everything, but basically the wording of their Google AdWord was attracting a group of people that was farther along in their research process than we understood them to be. And where they were in their research process, they wanted to get a demo of this software. Whereas we thought, they're just clicking around in Google looking for this software, like they must be very, very green in their research. And so, of course, the pages just bombed, and we're like, whoa, what's going on here? And so we tested, giving them a demo. And it turns out that's what they wanted. And in the first page, we were just trying to relate to them and empathize with all of the troubles they were experiencing and how difficult their lives were without this software. And it turns out they already knew all that. They didn't need to be empathized with. They needed to be connected with in their very busy day and just get down to business. So, yeah, just talking about segmenting, it's like it even gets more granular than that, even within within Facebook or within Google AdWords or, any of these other traffic sources, there's even smaller chunks of people to identify. So, and it gets even worse because each of us as individuals have individual stories that motivate us in different ways, so.
Yeah, building up that relationship with the customer. We've all heard about relationship marketing, but it's moved so much further these days. That's why majority of, information marketers or advanced marketers these days, they do webinars. You want to build that relationship with your potential lead, your potential customer, as fast as you possibly can, and you do that through video with voice or webinars in a different way. And you can also collect qualitative feedback and continuously make your videos, make your webinar a lot better. They see that you're trying to make their lives better by making their problem solved.
Yep.
And then in the landing page or the offer, they kind of already know about you, so they're more likely to maybe convert.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point, though. I think you're actually giving away a conversion tip right now. Whenever you have such a wide array of people, backgrounds, backstories, experiences, jobs, family, all those things. When you can attract, this group of people and kind of educate them and get them all on a level playing field, at least to a degree. You can't change their story. You can't change where they work. You can't change any of those things. But if you can have them be have something that's common between the entire group in terms of knowledge or interests, I think that's part of that connection and that relationship building, is and part of selling, well, is having that. So,
yeah, when you're dealing with, the internet in general, you're going to bring in a wide audience, and not everyone's going to be your ideal target customer.
Yeah.
But you can filter those people down. That's why people do webinars. People who usually stick around to the end are more likely the ideal customer for you.
Yeah.
And you can continuously niche and dig into what their triggers are of why or why not they may actually buy from you. Even in the conversion space, I mean, me on this podcast, a lot of people ask me, don't you feel that you're just always talking to yourself, talking to other conversion people all the time? I mean, yes, that's true. But there's also a small segment of people who are just getting started, and I'm building my relationship with those potential people. And, they may in the future may need courses, books, and things that I have to offer in the future. But, at least I have a platform to connect with them to eventually maybe, do more business with them later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about you. How do people find out about you? And tell people your website as well.
Yeah, I mean, just, hit jengordon.com, and you can catch me there. And on Twitter really is probably the best place to, if you, have a question about landing page design. I'm also doing a conversion class with my writer partner. Her name's Jen Hayvice, and we have a little free 3-day class out there that we're teaching right now, and we're just, we're kind of doing what you're talking about in terms of just trying to create some community in this space and to share stories, and it just feels like we're all in the trenches, and it feels good to know there's other people in it with us, because we work with our clients and need to learn from other people as much as we hope to help others learn. So I don't know. We can put a link, I guess, in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. People can find out about that on the show notes page at marketingoptimization.tv. And if you want to follow Jen on Twitter, it's @it's Jen Gordon.
Yeah, somebody already has Jen Gordon, unfortunately, so I had to put it's Jen Gordon.
Great, perfect. To close out, what would be one thing you would tell optimizers to do to really take their landing pages and those conversion rates to that next level?
I think it goes back to the research piece. Even if you haven't hit a wall or you haven't, you feel like you've exhausted all resources, even if you're not to that point, even if you're just launching something new, gathering as much research as possible from people. I mean, start a Facebook page and run an ad, get a bunch of likes, and just start talking to people. I mean, there's so many different ways to engage potential customers. And I feel like the more you can just try to connect with them, hear them, empathize with them, and be interested in them, and really try to build that relationship. That would be my nice little abstract piece of advice there.
Well, thanks a lot for your time, Jen.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.